All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the group today. My name is Kelsey Hayden, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Smartsheet, a part of our user group team. And my role here is really to help customers connect and share their insights and stories during groups like this. And I am also joined by Kirk Preston, Software Concept Engineering Supervisor at Gorbel, as well as James Allen and Cicero, who are also members of our product marketing team and are often on these user groups as well. So I'm sure you've seen them around. So just again, we do have a lot of people attending today, so we just ask that everyone stay on mute for the first portion of the group. We will have a chance to come off mute and actually network with one another in the second portion. One thing we do want to call out is that the chat is open for everyone to utilize. So during Kirk's presentation and as we're sharing things, if anyone has questions, feel free to use the chat to ask them in there. We'll either answer them via chat or actually ask them aloud and read them. And I just see that we finished that poll. So it looks like we have a lot of people who are kind of in that intermediate range, which is fantastic. Kirk definitely has a lot of insight to share today, so we're excited to see his presentation. Next slide, please. So just to give you all some insight into our session today, we have been running industry and product-focused roundtables following our customer conference Engage, which was held on October 19th. So if you weren't able to join us that day, you can still actually view the recording. We'll put the page for that in the chat in just a moment, but you'll be able to view the recording for this session as well as other roundtables that you may have not been able to attend and even share it with colleagues who may not be with us today. So all of that is being recorded and accessible to everyone following the event. And one thing I do just want to note is you will see a series of polls pop up throughout the group. We ask if you're able to please fill those out. Most of the feedback that we get for these groups is actually driven through those polls, and it really helps us to understand where customers are coming from so we can improve and plan for future groups, sessions, roundtables that we're hosting. So we value that feedback, and we thank you for taking the time to fill out those polls for us. Next slide. So just to quickly review today's agenda, as I mentioned, Kirk Preston from Gorbel is going to be our first presenter, and I'm really excited for him to give us his business insight on how he and his team are actually leveraging Smartsheet at their company. After that, we'll have some time for Q&A, so any of those questions coming in through the chat, we'll be able to address those. And then following the Q&A, that's when we'll then break out into those meeting rooms. So we'll be able to actually come off mute, have our cameras on and chat with one another, continue to ask questions. Maybe if you're lucky enough to have Kirk in your room, but you'll also have some Smartsheet moderators. So happy to facilitate that conversation, answer any product questions you have. Next slide. Perfect. Okay, and with that, I would like to hand it off to you, Kirk, to provide us some insight into how you're using Smartsheet at Gorbel.
Great, thanks, Kelsey. I just want to thank Kelsey and James and everyone at Smartsheet for having me today. Real excited to share kind of our journey with Smartsheet the last few years. So you can get to the next slide there. I am the Software Concept Engineering Supervisor. Basically, it's development around our primary tool that we have called Crane Brain that allows our customers from all over the world to configure cranes and order cranes and manage our whole order process from all the way from quote through to manufacturing. So you can go on to the next one. I've been there about 25 years, so I've had a lot of experience at the company. And as I moved into more of a supervisory role the last few years, I was looking for a tool that would allow me to do project management. I had used some other industry standard tools and really wanted something that was a lot more usable for myself and for my group, and found Smartsheet pretty quickly. So I've been using that for about 7-8 years now, and really took it out for project management, but it's grown to be so much more. Once resource tracking was added into Smartsheet, we wanted to use that across the company. So I really pushed for the company to adopt that. And with a couple of years ago, we took that on as our project management tool across the company. Have quite a few licensed users managing projects, and we're able to see resource tracking of people across projects, which has always been a struggle for our company, and I'm sure for many companies, to understand how people are allocated and sourced throughout the duration of an effort on one project or many projects. So, but as we've moved on, we found out that there are just so many other things with the dawn of automation being added in, and some of the other things that Smartsheet's been adding in that I'll go over. It's really bloomed into a much bigger tool for us. So next. So obviously, primarily we use it for project management. I've actually used templates that Smartsheet has created and offered, and there's just a great template library of all manner of project management and other templates that are in there that are available for everyone. I basically took some of the project management work and then changed it and kind of made it suitable to our needs a little bit more specifically. Everything from the templates for the projects themselves, with a lot of conditional formatting and automated workflows, notifications, update requests, everything built right in, all the way up to dashboards that are set up with personalization so that based on the person that's logging in to see the dashboard, they're getting a personalized view of their work and their tasks without having to create a dashboard for everyone, really taking advantage of some of that new functionality that's been in there in the last couple of years that personalize those dashboards pretty much automatically, which has just been such a time saver for me. And just really leveraging the reports that look into the workspaces to look at all the projects that are in there and kind of roll those all up into both personal level, management level, and even executive level dashboards. So next.
Sorry, I was muted for some reason.
And quickly, I just want to call out too, I love that you've been able to utilize those templates in the Solution Center. And one thing for everyone to be aware of, those are completely customizable. So to Kirk's point, he was able to download them and actually take them, mold them for his need. I think something a lot of our customers run into is they don't maybe know that you can actually take them and really change them and modify them how you see fit. So they're not kind of stuck in that structure. They're more of just a guide and kind of a building block that we provide. And Kirk, again, love that you've been able to take that and then just further build upon that to fit the need of your team and other teams as well. So I did want to call that out, and I put a link to the center with the templates in the chat for anyone to utilize as well.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I mean, speaking of templates, human resources report, especially now with all the office staff primarily working remotely at this point. You have a few hundred people that have gone from the office to their homes. The first instance that I can think of where we really leveraged that was when Smartsheet released a kind of a COVID template, basically, for people reporting from outside the office of status. And this was before vaccinations, but who was in the office, who was out of the office, and why. We basically took that, customized it to meet our needs, and created a whole portal for all the employees to report positive tests, family situations, travel, all manner of things related to remote work. And then we're able to create multiple forms off of one sheet where all that information can be streamlined and reported back to human resources, even with a full approval process for people to submit requests and have them approved and sent to supervisors automatically. So that's just been a huge weight off of HR, who would have been managing that all through emails and Excel spreadsheets and quite a few other inconvenient ways of doing things. So next slide.
And I had a private message as well. I know you mentioned you were using multiple forms, possibly for one sheet or multiple. Have you been utilizing the logic feature at all within the forms?
Yeah, we actually went back and added that in, because when I initially did that, the logic features were just around the corner, I believe. So a couple months after we created that, the logic features came out, and we actually went back and were able to really improve the forms and make them more usable and make them more flexible for the users. So especially when we added in the vaccination status stuff that came along later. So
yep. That's great. Yeah, and for anyone unaware of that feature on the call, it is something we kind of recently released, but again, it just allows you to add logic to those forms. So if you make a certain selection, that kind of controls which maybe fields appear later on in the form. So kind of like a trickle down effect. And we can certainly put a link to that in the chat as well for people.
Yeah, and I think people have seen as we've started to support HR, kind of word got out, I think, basically, of all the stuff that we could do online. And we've used it for so many more things, especially with this remote work situation. Anything from organizing a community cleanup program for some of the roads near our business, where people could submit times that they wanted to get together with people and go out and work. We do all our training for our dealerships remotely now. And because of that, we're able to move basically our diploma system into Smartsheet and use the new document generator to create personalized diplomas that can be sent out automatically to people when they complete the work. That's been a really nice addition, is the document generator. The employee recognition program has been moved completely online. It used to be, the typical box sitting in the office that people would drop a piece of paper in. Going remote, we've made that all in Smartsheet. And basically from the submittal of a nomination, it goes right through to HR, it goes through an approval process, and there's automatic notification to supervisors and sending out the notification to employees as well. And then they get enrolled in a drawing that's also in Smartsheet. So, and then the last one well, there's actually a lot more, but the last one that's on here, we do a lot of fundraisers over the course of the year. One example of that would be a basket raffle, where we put all the information about the raffles online in Smartsheet. People are able to buy tickets, and we're able to gather all the entries so that we can do the drawings and hand those all out and communicate all that way. So it's just been phenomenal. I'm not sure how we would have handled most of these things previous to having some of this functionality. So next slide.
I love that you've, I know internally at Smartsheet, we even have kind of that employee recognition program where we are using forms to make the submissions, but I like that you all have actually used the document generator to like get those certificates. I think that's a great idea and a great use of it. So
yeah, it's been fantastic. So, yeah, and honestly, it's really driven in Smartsheet itself. It's really started to enable people in these departments to do some of this themselves. Now that I've been doing it, I'm starting to train people to create their own forms and their own automations and things like that. We actually have, and I didn't mention at the beginning, but we actually have a user group that I host every month and a half, 2 months at work, where we get together all the licensed users and actually go over different topics, cover new functionality from Smartsheet, and answer questions and walk through exercises together. So that's been a great tool as well. And I know we're going to talk about the mobilizer program in a few minutes, and I'm looking forward to taking advantage of that too. So
yeah, that's great. And that actually kind of goes along with a question that just came in, Kirk. Someone was wondering, are you acting as a champion for Smartsheet in your organization? They're looking at different solutions and wondering if you have actually maybe created like departmental champions through some of those different groups you're running.
That's actually, I mean, I would say I became a champion just because I saw the need for the resource management piece of it. I don't even know that I saw the bigger picture of all the ways we'd find to use it. But I think as people have become more confident in their abilities, we've had people going through the training, meeting with me. They've become kind of organically champions for their own departments to take it on and do more automation. I've seen that happen in engineering with working their system through change notices. I've seen it in the some of our medical lifting devices area. It really catches fire. Once a group gets familiar and confident, that's when they kind of become champions for their own area.
That's a great point.
So, okay, next slide. Yeah. So yeah, just to kind of wrap up, again, I've touched on it quite a bit. The workflow automation for me has been the real game changer once I got past the project management piece of it. Just really showing people how powerful that is in taking a lot of that day-to-day oversight out of the project management work cycle. all the way through to workflow automation in some of the HR and marketing and other departments that you've seen with the full approval workflow and emails and notifications. So communication with remote employees, obviously, a million different ways, and I only showed a fraction of them. Just been great for keeping people in touch. I mean, right up to we do a thing where we put together meals for a house in the city that helps support needy families, and we organized the whole drive and raised $1,000 in like 2 days for all the meals, just because it was so easy for people to get online and sign up. So project resource management, again, using the templates, that either the ones from Smartsheet or leveraging those to make your own, really takes a lot of the strain out of having a lot of different people with different ways of doing things, and makes it easier to train and get people up to speed. And then obviously, well, not obviously, some people may not have heard about it, but the project baseline functionality, I'm really excited about incorporating into our templates for the coming year, where you get basically a snapshot of where the project goes that you can compare as the project progresses. I had something that I actually built kind of custom in ours to kind of track that, but being able to take that out and use standard Smartsheet functionality will be outstanding going forward. So,
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kirk, for walking us through that. And I know we have a few questions that have come in kind of through that public chat, and I got a few privately as well. But the first one was actually from Don, and they were just wondering, they'd love to hear more about hosting the internal kind of like user groups that you mentioned. Do you have any major lessons learned to share?
Yeah, I think it's been a great thing for us just to initially just get familiarity with Smartsheet itself. Like, what is it? What does it do? What is it capable of? And just give people the opportunity to kind of get hands-on. The nice thing is everybody has an account. They bring their laptops to the meeting. We might even work through some exercises together that I put together. Typically, whenever we go over a piece of functionality, maybe that's new in Smartsheet or that we want to cover that month, I have sheets set up beforehand or exercises set up beforehand so that people can really get in and use it. Because for me, that's probably the biggest lesson, is getting people hands-on. I can talk at them all day and people are still pretty overwhelmed. Once they've seen how easy it is to really do it on their own, that confidence builds and they're able to incorporate it quicker.
I love that. And I know we had talked about previously that you do often like showcase maybe new functionality or run almost like workshops. I'm curious too, do you ever have like departments come in maybe, once a month or once a quarter, a certain group is designated to kind of show what they're doing in the platform? We had a group last week and someone had shared that is kind of what their, I guess, internal lunch and learn program has turned into, is just showcasing different ways of even using it internally to spark ideas amongst everyone.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of times where people have done that, where they've added automation, and we've basically blocked out a portion of the meeting where they could come in and kind of do a lunch and learn, or some kind of sharing activity where they're able to walk through the different pieces of functionality they used it and how they all kind of leverage that together to make what they were looking for in terms of a workflow.
That's great. And I know that to everyone on the call as well, Kirk had called out our mobilizer program earlier, and we'll actually talk about that in a little more detail at the end. But that is a great resource to utilize, and it's something Smartsheet provides to our customers if you are trying to organize these internal sessions. And I just actually put the link in the chat, so you can check that out. And again, we'll talk through that in more detail in a little bit. And I know Sarah had asked about the baseline feature that you mentioned, and Cicero had responded. Yes, that is something we rolled out a few months ago and really exciting. And Kirk, it sounds like you've been taking advantage of that already. So
yeah, I've used it on some individual projects to date, but I have plans to put it in the company-wide templates going forward for 2022. So.
Perfect. And then Chris had asked, curious if anyone, yourself included, Kirk, has leveraged Smartsheet to start tracking employee coronavirus testing under the new and contested OSHA ETS. So it sounds like kind of an extension of the dashboard you may have shared earlier.
Yeah.
So are you doing tracking on that as well?
That's kind of the newer component of it. The original was if people were going to be out of work, if they had a positive test. The second half of that we did later on was vaccination status. People could submit for time off to get vaccinated. They could upload their vaccination cards and track when they went for each shot, and now for the booster shots as well. So yeah, that's kind of grown as we've needed it to, which is nice.
That's awesome. Karen had asked as well, I'm interested in learning more about the automated signature approval process you mentioned. Can you share additional details?
Sure. Basically, there's a couple different ways that we've used it. There is the built-in automation that handles approvals, adds in fields where you can have supervisor approval, HR approval. That's fairly standard. I think what we've found works pretty well is actually doing some automation where, say there's a submission in the employee recognition program. When that submission comes in via a form that everyone has access to, that field is seen coming into the sheet, and we have automation that notifies HR. HR would go in then, following the link in the email, review the submission, make sure it's a valid submission. And basically, once they check a box in there saying everything's been fine, or it's either a checkbox or a dropdown that says approve in that situation. I can't remember how I did it. But once it sees that that's been checked, further automation informs the supervisor, informs the recipient of it. And then we use the document generator functionality to generate the document. And once that's noted as being done, it sends that out automatically to the user. So yeah, it's very little hands-on for a lot of information getting passed around. It's very easy to use.
That's awesome. And I am actually putting a link to that document builder or document generator that Kirk mentioned that they're using today. So if anyone did want to take advantage of it, that help article kind of goes through it in detail, and I think includes a video as well. So someone had asked, how long has your journey been to get the multiple solutions implemented? Are you using any premium apps other than resource management, or everything that you shared today is built in the core application?
For me personally, I use it in my group, like I think I said, for 6, 7, 8 years now. Within the last 2-3 years, we pushed it to be a company-wide application as the standard resource. There's the different levels of resource tracking that are within Gorbel. Just the standard resource tracking is what we use. When that came online, we promoted it to be a company-wide application with a kind of initiative for all the supervisors to start doing project tracking there. As far as the different applications I showed, how long it takes to get those up and running, most of them, when it's a form and a fairly simple automated approval system, once you're pretty confident with it, it's just an hour or two. I mean, for most of them, it's very quick. I mean, so it might take a little longer the first couple of times you do it, but once you've done it, for me, it's really the knowledge sticks, and I'm able to duplicate it in different ways pretty quickly. So.
That's awesome. And I know you had mentioned too, you had utilized or at least referenced a lot of our templates. I'm curious too, if you had kind of gone into our solution center or community, or even some of our weekly webinars we offer to help with some of those core capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, early on, especially when I was getting up to speed, I was definitely utilizing a lot. Like I promote Smartsheet, the training site, a lot because it's really well put together and it's really easy to follow. Now there's the different learning paths that you can take to kind of go from beginner to advanced. So I constantly promote that above and beyond our users group. And I have on a number of occasions used templates just to see how I would look up the type of application I wanted to do. Typically, I'm able to find something in there that Smartsheet's created at some point and just see how something is put together that I can either save as my own template or kind of build from the ground up. So
that's awesome. And Adam had asked, what cultural difficulties did you face when introducing Smartsheet as a new tool within your organization? Was there resistance to learning a new tool versus continuing to utilize maybe something like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or whatever you may have been using before?
Yeah, there definitely was. There's definitely a period of adoption, and still to this day. I mean, there's always conversations with some groups being slower to adopt than others. I think that's natural in any company with a variety of different supervisors. We were coming out of people using Project, people using Microsoft Excel, just emails, and any number of other ways to try and communicate project status. I think it was really raising the awareness of what Smartsheet was capable of and how easy it was to use. We had gone through a company-wide initiative on using Microsoft Project that just didn't take because it was just too complicated, honestly. And getting what I looked for when I found Smartsheet was something that did what I needed it to do in terms of project management without an incredible amount of overhead in terms of the complication that it involved, and much improved in my mind automation for notifications and status updates and dashboards and things. So once people see that, that's when they start to it kind of starts to take hold. And if you provide them with things like the templates that we have and the training that Smartsheet has and we have, it all kind of works together to get them up and running pretty quickly.
That's awesome. It kind of reminds me, we again had another user group and our speaker had said something along the lines of, build it and they will come sort of mentality is what they're using at their organization. So it sounds like similar for you. I know you've built a lot of the items and templates that other teams are using, and it's kind of helped them to, I guess, get used to or just see what's possible with Smartsheet and maybe take it from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of the early time is spent teaching and maybe handing them some stuff. Now I feel like we've moved on to the kind of the enablement and empowerment part of it, where now I'm promoting them starting to do the things, and I'll even sit with them and make them do it. But I want them to get their hands dirty when they're trying new things and not trying to lean on me so much, because that's when it starts to grow more, when it's not just me, creating everything. So.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point too. And something we definitely hear a lot is a lot of organizations have, that champion or mobilizer, but how do you start to kind of trickle that down and maybe have multiple or multiple like department champions to help? And I think from the sounds of it, the way you've been tackling it is really awesome. So I know someone had also asked for production. Are you using any ERP system for production? If so, how are the two systems maybe being used in conjunction with one another?
We do have an ERP system. We don't use anything directly from Smartsheet with our ERP system. We do enable a lot of different processes for tracking. I'm actually working on a system right now with our production and manufacturing departments to help them organize some of their daily reports that they're doing in. It's all by hand and Excel and copying and pasting and emailing. A lot of manual updating every day, really taking information directly out of the ERP system, importing that into Smartsheet and kind of running from there. So that so much of it's automated and it's put into dashboards instead of emails. And but I would say it's more adjacent to the ERP system than directly integrated in our case, but super useful even for, out on the shop floor. So.
That's great. And one thing I wanted to call out too, if you are looking for more of maybe that integration or connection, we definitely do have options. To Kirk's point, you can simply import, export from Smartsheet. Everyone has access to that functionality, but we do also have like pre-built connectors and even a tool called Data Shuttle, which can help to almost like merge data in from other systems. So definitely a lot of options depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of proficiency question too. I mean, there's Data Shuttle, which we've looked at as well. API, if you have people that are advanced coders that want to get into that side of it. So.
Yeah, we definitely almost like a choice for everyone, which is awesome. So, and if anyone does have any questions on some of the things we kind of just briefly mentioned, you can always email us at usergroups@smartsheet.com and we'll be happy to put you in touch with members of our team or send you helpful links. And I think I'm just looking through, I see we have a kind of a lot of questions coming through. I see some on index match, which Cicero was answering. I'm sure he will be happy to talk to that more in the breakouts. But I think just finally, someone had mentioned about change management, but you had kind of touched upon that of you're kind of past maybe that stage, and it's more on it like empowering users at this point, right? Through
Yeah,
some
I
of
would,
the
I would
sessions.
say that's kind of where we're at as a company right now. So.
Perfect.
And
Well,
index match is great, so I'm glad there's a link in there because I know I need a refresher. I was planning to use it shortly too. So I left my notes from the last Smartsheet conference on my desk at work, and I haven't been there in a long time. So
I think you're probably in the same boat as many. So, but perfect. Well, thank you so much, Kirk. This was great. We really appreciate you running us through, some of your different use cases. I know there's many more, and for going through those questions too. So in just a moment, we are actually going to break out into a few different meeting rooms within Zoom. So if everyone just holds tight, we'll get those prepared, and you should see an